one of my friends has requested me to do one of these videos, and this video, as you can see by the title, it is how to get a girlfriend. And I get it, you're trying to find the one, you're trying to find that life partner that you've always wanted in your life. And if you want credibility, I've had multiple girlfriends and I have current one today with 2+ years. So I hope my advice to you would help you, 1, find the one or find that girlfriend, and 2, maintain that relationship for a longer time. You know, before I had a girlfriend, past and present, I was scared to talk to women. Many men are nervous, and I get it. I was nervous too, and I didn't want to get rejected. I don't want to mess up my words, stumble, look dumb, and seem like a loser to her. In my time, I've been rejected by a lot of women, and it sucks. It hurts, but it's a risk. The higher the risk, the higher the reward. You have to accept it if you want to, approach women, if you want to have a conversation with them and try to have that date. It's a risk. You might get rejected, you might not, and you have to accept that risk. And when you get rejected, once you accept the risk, you can reframe the situation. So when you talk to a girl and she rejects you, you can see it as a rejection, or you can see it as a learning opportunity of, maybe I should have said this way. My tonality is off. Maybe I need to work on my presentation skills, my physical appearance, because I'm not strong enough. I didn't shave my beard, or I didn't line it up, or I just didn't take a shower and I'm disgusting. And with approaching women, you're also able to practice talking to them. And I know a lot of you are, let's say, scared just because you haven't had the experience. So going up to them, talking to them, getting that experience of rejection, but also just practicing talking, those are the benefits. And that is what I'm talking about on reframing the situation, where instead of just focusing on, I'm rejected, I'm a loser, I can't move on, I'm gonna get rejected again, it hurts my feelings, blah blah blah. You can say, what can I do better? What can I do better for myself? Maybe she wasn't the one, so she probably wasn't the right one for me just because she didn't see past my physical appearance or the initial first impressions. So reframe the situation. But before we jump in, I want you to subscribe and like the video. And if you are in a relationship or you've overcome the fear of rejection, leave a comment down below on your story or your advice. So how do we get to this level? How do you find a high quality woman, overcome the fear of rejection, and also become the best partner once you find her? The first tip is something that a lot of people talk about, but I feel like a lot of people aren't doing. It really has nothing to do with the approach or actually talking to women or on how to maintain a relationship, but you have to focus on yourself first. What this means is that you have to be stable. You can't be swimming in chaos, because if you are in that chaos, in that chaotic environment where you don't really have much control, women would not be attracted to that, nor would you be able to maintain that relationship, because you have too many responsibilities going on, you have too many things going on that you're procrastinating, you have to get things done, deadlines, or you're just unorganized. If you can't organize your life, then you can't organize that relationship. So what you should work on is your health, wealth, and mind. What that means is that go to the gym, have a stable and abundant income. And with your mind, this can be a lot of things like emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, but you should also be able to tune your mind to withstand high pressure. All in all, basically, get your shit together. Before I was in a relationship, in the past and present, I had focused on my health. And it was easy for me just because I was an athlete where I had to train 5 times a week. And with my diet, I just drank a lot of water. I avoided sodas. I avoided highly processed foods and high fructose corn syrup. And I focused on eating clean foods. And guess what? When I worked on my health, on my body, I felt more confident. I gained confidence from the progress I was seeing like 2 to 3 months in, but also from the discipline, from the daily habits that I am doing, because the actions that I do is proof of my health. I'm working out, I'm stretching, I'm foam rolling, I'm drinking water, I'm doing my ab routine, I'm doing my band exercises. Doing these actions are the proof of me focusing on my health. And with confidence, women like confidence. Now, you shouldn't have the highest ego that, you're like, I did this, I'm better than everyone. You should have a little bit of ego, but that ego should be backed up by actions, by proof. With that proof, that means you know what you're doing. And women like to know what you are doing. That is why you need to spend time with yourself. Build your idealized self. You need to know what you want, but also know the habits that will build you towards your goals. Because when you're working on yourself, that means you're also doing something. And after hearing, men older than me who just sit around all day, smoke weed, game, eat junk food, women don't want that. Women want someone who are doing something with their lives. You don't want to be that chunky slob who doesn't add any value to society. Before I started to work on myself, I was that chunky slob who gamed all day. And once I started to focus my wealth and my mind, I started to be more confident in myself, even more from the physical features. I started to put myself more out there, because I wanted to improve my speaking skills. I wanted to focus on my free talk, my conversational skills, and my tonality. And with that, I had to put myself out there. I started to talk to more women without the intentions of wanting to date them, just wanted to talk and be friends and be comfortable. And with the confidence that I had, I spoke with more confidence. And with being confident, I wasn't afraid of rejections because rejections don't affect me. And guess what? I was able to get a girlfriend from it. So focus on your health, wealth, and mind. You won't regret it. Second tip is to don't fall for the social media trap. I've fallen for this trap where I've been Snapchatting or on Instagram and I see a girl like, oh, she looks really good. She goes to my school or goes to another school. I want to talk to her. I want to get to know her. And this is just all from Snapchatting her from like pictures or from social media where you always see filtered photos, videos, or, altered images where they make them look very good. And as a stupid young teenager in the past, I've always thought that, DMing them on Snapchat or Instagram was the best way to approach women. I haven't talked about this at all. I don't think I've ever told anyone, but I've talked to many women on Snapchat in my high school days. And some of them were, out of state, and some of them were local near me where I just went on dates with them. And honestly, it would have been better to talk to them in person first. Like if I saw them walking down the street and I approached them that way, that would be the better way to have that conversation than just, simply DM over text or over Instagram or Snapchat and then schedule the date that way. Better to have, at least one in-person interaction before you have that date. And honestly, if you're afraid of being catfished, like if you use dating apps or you're doing this dumb approach, this helps you avoid catfishing. So yeah, if you're afraid of that, just approach women in person. But anyways, I've always thought it was easier to approach women through social media just because it cuts the face-to-face interaction. I was scared of my physical appearance. I always stumbled on my words, so texting or being on social media was easier because I'm able to sit down, think, and write down my thoughts. When you're in a conversation with somebody, for me personally, it's very hard for me to come up with questions or words or articulating my thoughts. You can probably see my raw videos I'm starting to post because I just haven't had enough practice. I was very closed off in my younger days where I didn't have many conversations. I just was silent, did my work, and that's it. So I lacked the skill of being able to, one, articulate my thoughts, have good personal skills, or being able to talk to people, especially new ones where you have to approach them, or if they're a customer. If from my experience, I worked in a restaurant. Having that face-to-face interaction is key. And sometimes you don't want that face-to-face interactions with women just because you're afraid of that awkward moment where she's like, oh, I'm not interested, maybe another time, things like that. You're afraid of being rejected and having to handle that little bit of awkwardness after the fact. But from my experience, you approaching women on social media found this to be a waste of time. Many times, I did not vibe with the woman. Okay, maybe it has worked out for other people, but for me, it hasn't. I met my current girlfriend through my college classes, where I was able to talk to her in person and kind of schedule these, study sessions just to get to know her and talk to her before we actually had our first date. And when you do this, you'll save your time, money, and energy because you have that first human face-to-face interaction with them. You get to have that first impression, see if you actually vibe, so then you don't go on a date, learn all of that, and be like, oh, she doesn't like me, we don't have the same values, and I still have to pay for this. And I'm giving out my nighttime, my time I could just use for myself. Stop hiding behind your screens. Don't be like me. Go out there and practice talking to women. And it doesn't even have to be a woman. You just have to talk to somebody. At least for me, I was just very hard to talk to anybody. So, talking to women, talking to new people, and having to learn how to network, that was a big scare factor for me where I had to overcome that. If you're like me, talk to anybody. If you're just solely scared to talk to women, try to talk to them. And with knowing this skill, you'll be able to become better at speaking on the fly, maintaining that conversation, gauging interest, and overcome your nervousness of the fear of judgment. The third point, which ties in with the previous one, is to talk, ask, and evaluate. Now, it takes multiple dates before you label yourselves as a couple. And with these dates, if you really want to know if somebody matches your values, you're going to have to ask them. And that's a hard question. And of course, you can ask them about their job, their hobbies, their life and interests. But then you have to go to those hard questions where you have to ask them, what do you value? What are your top values that you want to maintain? What are your priorities? What are your politics like? Do you want kids? You may not be wanting to ask this just because it's uncomfortable. And when you make someone uncomfortable, you have the fear of them wanting to leave. But that's the whole point. If they don't match your values or interests, or they don't want you to find them out, then she's not the right one. And after that, it's just time to move on. Maybe they are willing to compromise one of their values or their lifestyle or their habits or hobbies, but that's just a different discussion that you and her have to have. And with having these hard conversations first, it's better to know it now than having to have this conversation months in or years in, where you had just invested so much energy, time, and money into this relationship, where you just come to find out she doesn't like my politics and now she hates me. She doesn't want kids. What am I gonna do now? So talk and have these uncomfortable conversations. Then evaluate after these questions. Do they actually have the same values as you? Do you accept their values? Do you actually see her as your lifelong partner? And from statistics, or you can just do the math in your head, you'll spend most of your time with your partner, once you get them in your 20s or 30s or 40s, all the way until you die, unless you have a divorce. But, if you stick with that partner, that's already a lot of your life. Like if you're 21 like me and I'm in a relationship, I'm gonna be with her with 60 plus years if I live until 80. So it's better to find someone who has those same values, or the values that you can accept, so then when you don't find out 20 years in, we're I don't value this, so bye-bye, or we don't agree with this, we fight a lot about it, and we just can't come to the conclusion where you have to start to figure out what to do next. We don't want to deal with that later on. You should deal with that at the beginning. And with having to find out that they don't match your values 20 years in, you'll start to have regret, and you'll start to feel resentment towards her or towards yourself just because she isn't meeting your expectations or the values that you have. Now, I'm pulling this idea from a podcast I listened to a while ago, but resentment in a relationship comes from the expectations you've never communicated about. Because later on, you'll start to resent the other person for not meeting your expectations. You never communicated to them about it, so their behavior never changes. So then you start to have resentment because you're she doesn't get it. She's not doing what I want. She is not changing. And you just feel resentment. But guess what? You never talked to her about it. You never said, hey, I don't like the way you say this or do this. But then you just build up this resentment because she's not changing. So really evaluate the person, really evaluate what she is saying and what she's doing, and make sure that she's the right match for you. Have the tough conversations first. If they don't match with you, then do this next step, which is step 4, where you have to move on. You have to move on, and no, you cannot be friends with them. I get it. It's hard to let go of someone who you spent time, money, energy with them, and you have to be the bad guy to cut them off, cut them out of your life, stop communicating with them. But you'll have to, especially if you see that woman as a partner that you wanted. Drop her and move on to someone else. You just have to remind yourself that there's a crap ton of women out there. Because if you keep her as your friend, you're wasting your time. There is no point. You had romantic intentions and she didn't. Delete her number and move on. And I get it, it's tough to let go, but do you really want someone who reminds you that you had failed? It's like a carrot on a stick. You wanted her, but she either friend zoned you or it didn't work out. But then she says, we can still be friends. And you might be the dumbass like me who said yes in the past, we can be friends. But no, don't take it. If you continue being her friend, 1, you're constantly reminded that you can't be with her romantically, and 2, you suffer from that idea. So follow these 4 steps and start to put yourself out there. You have to take initiative. Women will not come to you. It's unfortunate. You might think, oh, if I'm very attractive, then I can attract a woman. But no, you have to take initiative. Take action by talking to her, approaching in person, getting her number, getting to know her on dates. And a good reminder is that you get what you put in. If you don't put anything in, you get nothing in return. And remember to reframe your situations. Although it is sometimes demotivating to have rejections, use it as fuel. Use it as a learning opportunity to improve yourself and build yourself to a better person. Just don't stop trying. If you're younger than me, like 21 years old, then I suggest you to watch this next video. I love you guys, and go improve it.